Right then, let's have a proper look at something fascinating today. We're diving deep into the art of Gyuri Lohmuller.
Ah, yes, the Romanian-born painter. Now living in France, I believe.
That's right, living in France. But his work's really getting noticed internationally, selling in the US, all over.
It's quite the story, and we've got some really good material here to explore his background, his thinking.
And crucially, 10 of his paintings. We want to really get under the skin of his art, give you a clear sense of his vision without just listing facts.
Exactly. Distill the essence.
He sounds like quite an individual.
Mm-hmm.
Our sources suggest he's largely self-taught. No standard art school path or anything like that.
That's the impression, yes. Been painting for, 35 years?
Yeah.
Driven by this internal sort of personal need.
Apparently growing up in communist Romania.
Yeah.
Well, it restricted certain artistic things, didn't it?
Uh-huh. So that desire, maybe pent up, really came out later when things opened up.
Makes you wonder how that whole experience filters into the work we see now.
Well, that self-taught aspect, it often breeds originality, doesn't it? You're not sort of weighed down by academic rules.
True. He apparently likes working in silence, too. Just completely absorbed.
Yes, total immersion. Though it seems he did get some guidance from a restorer, Komisarski, and attended the Popular School of Arts.
Ah, okay. So a mix, perhaps. Independent study, but with some mentorship.
Probably forged quite a unique voice that way.
Right. Well, should we dive straight into the paintings themselves? First one's got a title that certainly grabs you. Sex, Fear, and Hunger.
Doesn't hold back, does he? We're starting quite primal here.
So what's the central idea?
Well, Lohmuller frames it around these fundamental forces: sex, fear, hunger, the things that, control us on a basic level. But he puts it in what he calls an ancient mythological framework.
Interesting. So gods and myths.
There's a main god figure, yeah. And the interesting bit is this god can wear any mask. Suggests power and control are kind of universal, maybe shifting shapes across history, across different cultures.
A god with interchangeable masks. That's quite an image for how authority works, isn't it? Fluid.
It really is. Makes you think.
And what else is going on in the painting? He mentions a symbolic landscape.
That's right, down at the bottom. The landscape itself represents those drives: sex, hunger, fear. And then you've got specific figures dotted around.
Like who?
Well, Mars, the god of war, is sort of lurking, represents the fear and conflict, maybe. Then Pan for those primal urges, and Eros, obviously, for desire.
A potentix.
And there's a cornucopia, too, symbol of abundance, perhaps showing how even basic needs can be, used to manipulate or control.
Gosh, yeah. Quite a visceral combination to start with. Okay, moving on. The next one's called Lord of Obstacles. Feels like a complete shift.
It is, yeah. Different tone, different culture entirely. We're looking at the Hindu deity Ganesha here.
Ganesha, right. The remover of obstacles brings good luck, that sort of thing.
Exactly that. Very revered figure. Lohmuller highlights some key attributes Ganesha's vehicle, the mouse.
A mouse? Why a mouse?
Well, maybe it symbolizes getting through tiny gaps, navigating small difficulties. And crucially, Ganesha carries an axe to, cut down obstacles and a rope to capture them.
Tools for tackling life's problems, essentially.
Precisely. The tools we all need, metaphorically speaking.
So how does he show this idea, this overcoming obstacles, in the actual painting?
Well, on the left, there's a river. Lohmuller specifically says that's the obstacle. And then
there's a bridge.
Exactly. A bridge going across it. Clear symbol of overcoming the barrier. And he sort of expands on that, suggesting if you can bridge a river, well, then other things, like walls, real or metaphorical, they can be dealt with too.
It's a powerful visual metaphor, isn't it? Paving the way forward.
It really is, taking that specific image and broadening it out.
Fascinating. Okay, number 3 is fragile purity. That's very delicate.
It does. And the theme is just that how delicate and easily broken the world's beauty and purity can be. He mentions this one has a more decorative feel.
Decorative? How so? Compared to the others?
Perhaps less overtly packed with symbolic figures, maybe more focused on atmosphere and the vulnerability of nature itself.
And how does he get that fragility across visually?
Well, you've got living trees in the background, full of life, but then where there's this element of cracked glass in the painting,
I see.
The trees behind that are dry, lifeless, and he explicitly links the shape of the cracks to branches reaching up.
So the cracks mirror the branches?
Yeah.
Like nature's aspirations are broken?
Something like that, yeah. As if that fragility is reflected right there in the glass. It's quite poignant, that connection.
It really paints a picture. Okay, next. Frozen Time. It sounds a bit surreal.
Well, he actually calls it a surrealist painting himself, says it explores the alternation between hot and cold, joy and sadness, happiness, loneliness.
Those big contrasts, the dualities of life.
Exactly. Classic surrealist territory, juxtaposing those opposing states.
And the title, Frozen Time. How does that play out?
There's a whalebone in there, which he says represents cold loneliness, a stark image. But then, inside a cube in the painting, there's a figure. And she finds warmth, a kind of timelessness, through her art.
Through art.
The idea is her music, her memories of summer that she conjures. They sort of suspend time beneath her. She rises above the coldness, the loneliness.
Wow. Art as a way to find warmth, permanence, in a sometimes cold world.
Oh.
I like that.
Speaks to the power of creativity, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And memory.
Definitely. Okay, let's look at Never Give Up. Very determined title.
It is. And this is another surreal, symbolic piece, represents tenacity, perseverance, particularly perhaps for an artist.
Maybe reflecting his own journey,
Yeah,
being self-taught and keeping going.
quite possibly. The main image is striking. Someone keeps singing even while being, well, attacked. He uses the image of thrown eggs.
Thrown eggs while singing.
Yes, and with broken strings on their instrument, it's about carrying on, isn't it? Pursuing your passion despite everything.
That's a powerful image of resilience. How else does he develop that idea?
Well, the figure keeps their balance by holding a bow, which he interprets as passing through life and its obstacles.
Aye.
And even the attack, the eggs, they get transformed. They become food, sustenance, and even part of the artwork itself, he mentions an egg eye.
So turning the negative into something positive.
Yeah.
Fuel, even beauty.
Exactly. Finding strength in the struggle, using adversity. It's quite profound, really.
A really creative take on resilience.
Ah.
Okay, next is the next client.
Sounds potentially a bit sad.
It definitely evokes that feeling, yeah. Nostalgia for the past. It shows an old photographer
Okay.
who's still hoping someone will come in wanting a daguerreotype. You know, that very old photographic process.
Oh, right. So he's clinging to a bygone era.
Pretty much. Waiting for a client for something nobody really wants anymore. It's quite poignant.
And the scene itself, what's the feel?
Lohmuller points out the waiting utensils, the decorations already. There's a sleepy jackal adding to the stillness. And he mentions intense heat.
Heat. Why heat? Maybe it adds to that feeling of languor, stillness, time dragging, that wistful waiting for something that won't happen.
You can almost feel that heavy, quiet heat. Okay, now for something different. Trick or treat. Sounds more modern.
It is, yes. A contemporary scene focusing on Halloween. You see a businessman described as new, waiting patiently for carolers.
So, respecting tradition.
Apparently so. Seems quite normal on the surface.
But knowing Lohmuller, there's probably a twist.
Well, a couple of details. He mentions the businessman has candies ready, but adds a little note about stinginess despite his success. A slight irony there. But the really unsettling bit is the mirror. In the reflection, someone's watching the businessman from behind.
Oh. Adds a bit of an ominous touch, doesn't it, to what should be quite a lighthearted scene.
Exactly. Introduces unease, maybe a hidden threat.
Interesting layer. Right, the next one is exchange. Makes you wonder immediately, an exchange of what?
Good question. This one's presented as a metaphor. It's about European civilization, its perceived superiority, and how it was sort of exported to pre-Columbian cultures.
Right, that historical narrative.
But then Lohmuller throws in the question, but is it really so? He's asking us to critique that idea, question the value of that exchange.
So how does he show that complex idea visually?
We see a white man offering whiskey, but the measure he's using is hidden behind a column.
Hidden. Why?
Lohmuller says the column symbolizes classical culture, so maybe the foundations, the assumptions of European culture aren't fully revealed in the exchange. The hidden measure suggests maybe a lack of honesty, an imbalance.
Ah, that's subtle but very powerful. A visual commentary on inequality in that exchange.
Precisely, very thought-provoking.
Okay, nearly there.
Yeah.
Penultimate one. Finding the fern flower. Sounds like folklore.
It is, and Lohmuller notes this was painted after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which gives it a very specific, somber context.
Right, okay.
The title refers to a Slavic tradition, Kupala night, around the summer solstice. Young women would gather by water, make flower crowns.
I think I've heard of this. They float them on the water.
Yes, with candles to see where their future love might lie. But their mothers and grandmothers would be watching.
Ah, the watchful eyes.
Exactly. So to get away, maybe meet a lover in secret, the girls would go into the forest looking for this mythical fern flower.
Which doesn't actually exist, right?
Correct. It never blooms. So the search becomes symbolic, seeking freedom, connection, maybe escaping scrutiny, and given the painting's timing, perhaps a metaphor for seeking hope or solace in dark times.
Wow, that's beautiful. Linking ancient tradition to such a current, painful event.
It really resonates.
And finally, Divergent desires. Sounds like it's about relationships, perhaps.
Yes, symbolic surrealism, again, illustrating the opposition between, as he puts it, different female-male desires, a real contrast.
How does he show that contrast?
On one hand, you have a woman in a state of Zen karma, seeking peace, light, tranquility, very serene.
And the opposition.
Two clenched hands, clearly tempted by an underwater mine.
A mine. Wow. So peace versus danger, destruction.
Seems so. That pull towards something potentially destructive versus the desire for calm and enlightenment. It's a stark visual of internal conflict, or maybe the differing drives between people.
Goodness. Well, that's quite a tour through 10 incredibly very deep paintings.
Yeah.
Looking back across them, it's amazing how he weaves myth, symbolism, current events.
It really is. And when you remember he's largely self-taught, came to painting seriously quite late, his international success is remarkable.
That theme of perseverance we saw in Never Give Up seems quite personal then.
You'd think so. And his philosophy, that painting lets you take a step forward with the freedom of destroying.
Yeah.
It suggests a really bold, maybe fearless approach, not afraid to experiment.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Gyuri Lohmuller's art, you're left with this impression of incredible range, rich symbolism.
Yeah.
It really makes you want to look closer, doesn't it?
It does. It invites multiple readings, and it really leaves a question for you listening. Considering all these different themes, symbols, emotions, what do Lohmuller's paintings stir in you? What personal connections do you find?
A great final thought. It shows how powerful art can be, sparking reflection on these complex ideas, these shared human experiences.